name is Charlene. I am 57 years old and I've been a carer for 6 years. I became a carer when my husband had a workplace accident, and all of a sudden our lives changed and I was suddenly a carer. My husband's accident was a workplace accident. He was a hands-on general manager. So he not only did the general managing tasks, but he also worked. So he was up in a cherry picker fixing some nets on the over top of one of the orchards. And no one knows what happened because he was working by himself in that particular area. But at lunchtime, when he didn't turn up for lunch, one of his work colleagues went out to find him, found the cherry picker on its side, and found him some distance away lying on his back. So they think that, well, something obviously happened and he came out of the cherry picker. So they called the ambulance. I don't know, sometime later, before I was called, they had a little difficulty tracking me down. But eventually I was called and taken into emergency. So. We were very adventurous. We traveled the world and we were ultra distance cyclists. So we cycled really long distances. About 2.5 weeks before the accident, we'd completed a 300-kilometer bicycle ride in 18 hours. Well, he was in a coma for 3 weeks. So the first 3 weeks he was in ICU, and they had him in a coma. They gradually brought him out of the coma at the end of the 3 weeks. But during that time, that was a horrendous time because he had the brain injury. They knew that. They didn't know how bad it was because he had the left side of his brain, the left temporal lobe was quite badly damaged. They discovered a little bit in the front is damaged. And then little spots throughout the brain have been damaged as well. So they weren't able to give me a prognosis at all because they can't tell what part of the brain specifically connects to what areas and what parts he actually damaged. So in that time, he developed DVT in his right arm. He developed pneumonia, and they were having a lot of trouble controlling that. So he had all kinds of things going on in those 3 weeks. And very gradually they brought him out of the coma and moved him into the neuropsych ward. And from there, he was there for several weeks. And then he moved into the rehabilitation hospital ward. And he was there for several more weeks. So in total, he was in the hospital for 100 days. In the hospital, it's quite intense in the hospital, and he had ups and downs and everything. By the time he got to rehab, he was stable and making some progress. He expressed an interest in beekeeping, and I was a little concerned about that because I wasn't sure how that would transpire with a brain injury and whatnot. So I decided to sign us both up for beekeeping classes. Anything like that I think is really good. I think for him, as soon as he expressed an interest in something like that, I thought, yes, we've got to pursue this and see where it leads, because he's using his brain in different ways when he's reading and researching, and then when he's out with the bees and looking at them and everything. So as long as he's using his brain, I think that's all a good thing. One of the main challenges right now is looking towards the future, because they've told me right from the beginning that he will likely develop dementia because of the brain injury. And they keep saying within 5 years, and they've said that right from the beginning. So we're at 6 years now, so he's past the within 5 years point. And he doesn't have dementia, he doesn't show any signs of it yet. So that's a good thing, but it's sort of lurking out there a little bit. Where once we thought we'll retire and travel the world and go cycling and everything else, and now it's sort of, we'll just see where 1 year leads to another and see how that all goes. I think it strengthened our relationship, but it changed it quite a bit, especially in the beginning, and now it's sort of transitioning again. In the beginning, I basically became his mom. So I handled everything, like all the appointments and everything. And I'm still doing that to a certain extent, although he's quite a bit more independent now. But in the beginning, I basically took on the role of mom. I didn't feel like wife, I felt like mom. And over the years, like I said, he's become more independent, and I think we're more partners now. One of the main things that's helped me is research. And right from day one, I sat down at the computer and started researching brain injury. And I found good sites and bad sites, and I was able to put together a list of tools for me, and I had a pretty good idea of what his progression would likely be. Oh, what's the hardest thing you've experienced or felt since Rowan's injury? And I said one of the things is ambiguous loss. And ambiguous loss is when it's a situation the whole situation with Rowan, because he's still here. He's still my husband. I'm still married to him. He's still alive. But he's changed a lot. And that he's not the same person. And we're not doing the same things. And so all of a sudden, it's almost as though Rowan was taken away and this other person was plopped in his place. And that's kind of an ambiguous loss that's never going to be resolved. He's never going to come back and be the person that he used to be. But he's a different person, and we've just got to move on with that. So there were those kinds of loss and grief things that were going on. There's obviously grief for his injury and all the changes that he's had, but I also went through a lot of that. So those are some of the things that I expect other people go through as well in the same sort of situation. No, there's still quite a bit of him there. It's different. It's difficult to say, but there's his mannerisms and things are still there. He still likes cycling, and we do actually cycle, just not anywhere near what we used to do. He's also, I find him more social now. He'll talk to anybody. So he's talking to people in the street and telling me the names of all the neighbors and their whole life stories and everything else. And he never did that before. So there's parts of him that I have had to get to know as this new person that has suddenly appeared on the scene. And what would I like other people to know about TBI? About my life with someone with TBI? I think one of the main things is to be prepared to slow down and take more time and factor in the fatigue factor and the fact that he needs more rest and that there needs to be rest days in there. And I've actually found that very beneficial. I think for me, one of the things I mentioned earlier that I'm not a natural carer. And for me, I had to keep some of me going, like in the picture. Natural carers, I think, can devote all their time and energy into caring, and they just do that naturally. But I needed some of me to keep going. I love him, and you know, I want to do stuff for him, but I decided I'd be the type of carer that I am.